I want to speak to you tonight on a timely subject. And in researching, I found some real interesting things. And you know, the Lord tells us that when we come together, it's to edify one another. And I hope that somehow you might be edified a little bit. And my subject that I picked was time. And when you stop and think about it, time is a gift. And God has given us time. And he's given it to man. And there's a lot of interesting things in the Bible about time. You know, we're living in some marvelous times. We're living in times of great knowledge, and time is a thing that is with us, and God invented it. And so I look back in the dictionary to see what Webster's definition of it was, and it means to divide up, or it means a period or an interval, and or a point in duration. We have, as we all sit here tonight, time is divided into things of the past, things of the present, and things of the future. And time is a finite duration. You were there when you were born, but you don't remember it, do you? And so physical birth brings us into the world. But did you know that the very moment that you were born, you began to die? Right. And so it's a very startling thing to think about, that death is coming. It's on its way. Yet we live as if we're never going to die sometimes. We think, well, death's just not going to happen to me. But it's sure, and it's coming. Right. And so the Lord gives us a certain period of time upon the face of the earth, and how we use this time and what use we make of it, and redeeming it to honor and glorify Him is what will be left for us whenever we pass from this earth into the future. What a joy, and how we should give thanks to the Lord that every morning that sun comes up just as regular. You can count on it, and for a new day. He gives us a new day, and He expects us to use that day to honor and glorify Him. And so the timetable that we have is a schedule of time. Certain things are to happen. And let's look at Ecclesiastes chapter 3. This was a blessing to my heart. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather. Verse number 5. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. So we see that there's a time for all these things. I guess it almost covers the entire gamut of our feelings that we can have within the physical man, and all these things are written down in the Lord's Word, and we should observe them and apply them to our lives. In Luke, a little picture of, for those of you, some of you probably are familiar with it. It says in verse number 9, "But then when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not by and by." Now, folks, my subject tonight is time, and I think that this is some timely scripture for the day that we're living in. Would you listen in verse 10? "Then said he unto them, Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And great earthquakes shall be in divers places, famines and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. But before all these they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogue and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. And it shall turn to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate before what ye shall answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay or resist. And it goes on, and you can read the rest of it, and I hope it'll be a blessing to you. This is what was on my mind, and the Lord laid it there for me to point out to you.
I don't know about tomorrow. I just live from day to day. I don't borrow from its sunshine, for its sky.